You are? Oh, there we go. All right. Good morning, everybody. Today's Daf Nun Hey and Nun Vav. So we left off the bottom of Nun Daled Amud Beis. We're discussing the avoda of the Kohen Gadol. So we know that he brought the keteris inside with the coals, and they were burnt inside, but dafka inside, not on the outside. And then he comes back out, and he already went ahead and he shechted his par. So he goes to retrieve the blood from the par. He goes back inside, and then he goes ahead and he sprinkles it towards the kaporas, right? Kaporas, not to get confused with paroches, right? Kaporas is the top of the aron, was a 1 amma thick covering. So he does it towards that direction, and he does it kamatzlif. So Zok the Gemara, bottom line, my kamatzlif. So as kamatzlif means samachli Rav Yehuda showed him. So he says kim and nagdan, right? Like a person who whips, so like a whipping motion, right? A whipping motion going down. He has on his finger, and he goes ahead and he whips down. So Tana. So it says over there, "Kshu maza ena maza al hakaparas el keneged ovyo shel kaparas." Right? When he sprinkles it, he doesn't mamish sprinkle it on the top of the kaparas, rather towards the ovia, the thickness of the kaparas. Right? So he doesn't do it exactly on it, rather towards that direction. So I guess it would sort of, the droplets would fall, towards the ground. And when you go up, there was one motion up and then 7 down, right? So lamala means he would have the back of his palm up, facing, right? The back of his palm would be down and it would go up, and therefore he would go up like that. Then he would sprinkle down. He would turn his hand the other way, face his hand down, and then then he would turn his hand, right? So he was, in other words, so when he sprinkles one time up, he has the back of his hand, right? It would go up, and the other one would go down, right? Right? He would turn the back of his hand down, right? And he would go then we go down. He would have his back of his hand, go up, right towards the top. So like that. So the first one will go like this, and the last 7 will go that. So minahani mili. So for where do we know this? That in other words, going on that Rashi explains ke'ena maza al kapiras, that he doesn't go exactly on the kapiras, rather towards it. So Omar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Omar Rav Zera, Omar Kar, the pasuk says, Vihiza oiso al kaparas v'lifnei kaparas. I'm just grab a chumash here, right? The main psukim over here on pasuk Yud Dalet. Just grab a chumash real quick, right? And pasuk, it's fine. Pasuk Yud Dalet and Tesvav are the 2 main psukim over here on the beginning of Achemos. So it says over there. Achemos. So it says over there, right? Pasuk Yadalid. I'm just reading the 2 psukim. So it says, I'm just reading the psukim, and then we'll get back. So it says, "V'lokach midam hapar." Right? I'm just reading the psukim, and he takes from the blood of the bull. Right? He's the best bull al pnei hakapires kedma, and then he goes ahead and he sprinkles it with his finger al pnei hakapires, right, towards the face of the kaparas. Kedma, reis, v'lifnei hakapiras, and then in front of the v'lifnei hakapiras, which is like a second one. So one was pnei hakapiras, right? Kedma, right? Right, or east, right? Then lifnei hakapiras yazis sheva pam, right? So we learned pnei hakapiras is the one that goes on top, and then it says then lifnei in front of it does 7. That was the ones we say is towards the bottom. From the blood on his finger, and then the next pasuk says, in pasuk Tesvav, it says the shachat es-seir hachatas, and then he goes ahead and he shechs the next animal, which is the seir, ashilam, which for the nation. V'hevias damo el mibes laparoches, the asas damo, then he makes the blood kasher asa ladama par, just like the blood, the way he did the blood from the par, he'll do with the seir. He's also al hakapiras lifnei hakapiras, and then once again it repeats the 2 loshonos of al hakapiras and the lifnei hakapiras. So he does both of them. It mentions al and lifnei. So now, but it doesn't mention the 7 by the seir. That's only the said he just does it identical to the first. So those are the psukim. So back in the Gemara it says visa right. So it doesn't say that he necessarily has to do al or lifnei. It shouldn't need to say by the seir. He says he does identical. So obviously we know it's going to be al and lifnei, right? So the Gemara mata the par, because it says that we learn it from the par. So Laman Amar. So why does it say la kushe al lifnei? So to make a comparison to al lifnei, ma lifnei delaf al, just like when it says lifnei in front of, it doesn't mean on, literally on. It means in front of, right? So af al delaf al. So too when it's meant al, the first one, and when it says al, it doesn't necessarily mean exactly on the kapiras. Rather, it means towards the kapiras. So the Gemara says, wait, maybe adrabah. Why don't you learn maybe the other way, right? It says lo yamar lamala b'par delight sarich. Maybe don't mention on top of the par. You don't need it, right? Don't say al only by the par. Do gomer malam b'seir, because then maybe we can learn from that in terms that it goes on top from the seir. So laman amar. So therefore, if it's the case, why do we learn that? La kushali lifnei the al ma al mamish al lifnei al mamish. So then maybe you can say that don't say it at all, and therefore, just like the word al on literally means literally on the kaparas. So too, the word lifnei, when you do the 7 towards the bottom, also is referring to on. So hi mai. So how could you say the second part? If you say that we learn from the seir from the next pasuk as a hekesh to compare the two. So therefore lamala the par. So therefore, why does it say lamala in the case of the par? Right? Why does it say al? Right? So the debate Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, because there's a drasha that was learned according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. The time debate Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov al pnei hakaparis kedma. When it teaches you, it says al on the face of the kaparis kedma is sebanav. That teaches you that it has a rule. It's a kol malkum shenamar pnei eno elo kadim. Anytime it says pnei, it means you face east, right? Eli marta lamala the par lakushe. But rather, if you say lamala for the par, we learn out. So lamata the seir lamayasa. If that's the case, why does it say right the word right lifnei when it comes to the seir? That there's nothing learned out. So therefore, since you can't learn out the drasha that way, so therefore we must say that the word al pnei kaparis kedma, right, is the proper is a drasha we can learn out, and therefore using the hekesh to compare the two, we compare the lifnei the al to lifnei, just like lifnei is not literally on but it's in front of. So too when it says al, it means it doesn't mean literally on, rather it means also towards or in front of it. So that was addressed. So the Gemara in the end, Maskana, we learned that both of them, al and lifnei, don't mean they actually sprinkle the blood upon the kapiras, upon the cover of the aron. Rather, it means towards that direction, up and then 7 down. Fine. Tana Rabban. So we are at the second last skinny line. So Tana Rabbanan, v'hiza oiso al hakapiras lifnei hakapiras. It says over there, he sprinkles it al kaparas lifnei kaparas. Lamanu kama lamala b'seir achas. So how much is on top? We say is 1. Ulamata b'seir any of the kama. Right? It says you do al kaparas in the case of the seir, you do 1, but it doesn't say how many you do towards the bottom. So I already done. So I'll say nemar damim lamata b'par. It says both times you do towards down by the par, by the bull, which we saw says 7 times. And we say also you do it towards down when it comes to the goat. And just like it says in the pasuk by the bull 7 times towards the bottom, so too we'll say that when it comes to the seir, right, the male goat, also it's 7 times towards the bottom. Oh, or maybe we can learn out another way. Maybe it says by the seir, by the goat itself, it says you do it on top and do it at the bottom. Just like on top, right? By the goat, you only do it once on top. So too, maybe you also do it only 1 on the bottom. So in other words, the only one we don't know is how many do towards the bottom of the seir, right? Of the goat. So do we compare it to the top of the goat, which is 1 to 1? Or do we say the bottom of the goat is the same way as the bottom motion when it comes to the bull. Just like the bull is 7, so to the seer is 7. So Gemara answers, near Lami Daima. Let's say which is compared to done in Mata Matvein, done in Mata Lamala. Let's learn the two downward motions to be alike, and now learn a downward motion from an upward motion. Therefore, let's learn the downward motion from the bull, the par, which is 7. So to the seir is 7. Or Gor says, no, other opposite. Done in Gufa mi Gufa vein, done in Gufa mi Alma. Why don't we learn the seir from the seir itself, 1-to-1 versus the seir from the par? So Tamaleimar. Therefore, it says the yasa is domo kashir asal adam hapar. Right? Do to its blood like that which you did the blood of the bull. She'ain Tamaleimar kashir asa. I don't need the words kashir asa like you did. So what's the nishi matamaleimar kashir asa? Shiyu kol asiyos of shavos, that all the dealings with the blood should be identical between that of the par and the seir. Just like this, the downward motion of the bull is 7 times down, so too the downward motion when it comes to the seir, comes to the male goat, so too it's also 7 times. And now it's going to do the other way. Says we have this other brisa says we learn when it comes to going lamata down by the bull was here it's 7. So lamata kama, but it doesn't say anywhere how much by the bull, right? You do up. Already done. It says up in the case of the seer, which is 1. We says up in the case of the par. Just like going up in the case of the seir is 1, so 2, let's say that going up in the case of the bull is 1. So, which is basically identical even before. That was the unknown, right? The variable here is how many times upward in the case of the bull. So let's learn from the seir, just like the goat is 1 up, so too the bull should be 1 up. Oh, let's learn from the bull itself. It says, you apply blood on the bottom in the case of the bull, and you also apply blood to the top of the case of the bull. Just like going down is 7, so too maybe going up is 7. So which one is it? Do we learn once again the top to the top from the bull to the seir? That's just like seir is 1, so too the par is 1. Or do we learn the bull from itself? Just like going and the going down is 7, so too the top motion should also be 7 times. So we say near Lami Daima. So which one is it similar to? So done in Mimala ain't done in Mimala Mata. Let's learn, right, the two upward motions to be alike, and therefore just like the seir is 1, so to the bull is like. Yours says no, Adarabba. Done in Gufa me done in Gufa me Alma. Let's learn the bull from itself. Just like the bull is 7 in the bottom, so too towards the bottom, so too bull maybe should be 7 times up. So Tamaleimar. Therefore it says V'yasa is damo kashir asa. You should do a blood of the seir identical to that of the bull. Shein Tamaleimar kashir asa. I don't need kashir asa. What's the extra words coming to teach us? Kashir asa. She'll call asiyos of shavos. Shem shamata b'par sheva. Kach lamata b'seir sheva. Just like, therefore, the two blood applications should be identical. Just like going down is 7. So in the case of the Kshesh lamata b'par by the bull is going down 7. Kach lamata b'seir sheva. So too the case of the goat is also 7 on the bottom. Kshesh lamala b'seir achas. Just like the goat is 1 up, so too kach lamala b'par achas. So too, in the case of the blood of the bull, it is 1 above. So it comes out, learning from the psukim, that the application of the par, which goes first, and then the application of the seir are both identical, right? They're both identical in terms of that you do 1 motion up towards upward, and then you do 7 downwards, right? So it's 1, 7, both by the par, which comes first, and then the seir, which is second. And then we say achas, right? Achas v'yachas, achas v'shayim, the way they count, and counts it off. So Tanur Rabbanan. So it says achas v'yachas, achas v'shtayim, achas v'sholosh, achas v'arba, achas v'chamesh, achas v'sheis, achas v'sheva. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Says Rabbi Meir, the way you count is basically like this, right? You count 1 up, you go 1, and then you count 1 and 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3. Right, but you don't go back and forth, right? You only do it 8 times. There's only 8 motions here, right? 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7. That's how you count. All right. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Meir achas. He say 1 achas v'achas shtayim v'yachas, sholosh v'yachas, arba v'yachas, chamesh v'yachas, sheish v'yachas, sheva v'yachas. He says, no, you count like this: 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6. So the question is the new number the first one or the second one? Right? Now, do you say 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7, 1, or do you say 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7? So that was machlokes in Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Huda as to the achas. Does it come before the chamesh or is it, after the chamesh? V'loi pligi, it's not a machlokes. Mar ki asrei or mar ki asrei. Each one counts basically the way they used to count in their place. In other words, obviously they didn't have their own base hamikdash in the place. They didn't have their own avodah in the place. Rather, was basically, as Rashi points out, like the way they would say, like either it's 21, 22, 23, or 120, right? 220, 320, 420, right? That's how they count it. So Markiasi is how each way is the way that they count it. However, we can learn out from here that each one actually counted the first one, right? You don't just do 1 and that's it, and then you start counting 7. No, you count 1 and then you count another 7. So that's included in the counting. So my timer, why do you need to go ahead and count 1? So Rabbi Elazar Omar Shlo Yite B'Hazos. He says simply, so there shouldn't be a mistake in the sprinkling. So you keep count out loud. Rabbi Yochanan Omar, he says no. Omar Kar, the pasuk says Lifnei HaKaparas Yazeh. Before the kaparas, he shall sprinkle. Shein tamaloi meyazeh. I don't need to say yazeh because they already said he sprinkles it. So therefore, I have to say yazeh. The word yazeh comes to teach you just like the other ones required accounting. So too, this one should require a counting. So my benayu, what is the nafkamina between the way between Rabbi Elazar, who says that no, you shouldn't make a mistake, and Rabbi Yochanan, who says it's from the pasuk. So in other words, if you didn't count, but you didn't make a mistake, according to Rabbi Elazar, it's no big deal because we just want to prevent you making a mistake. You didn't make a mistake, okay, that's good for you. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's actually learned out from the pasuk, and you have to actually go ahead and do a count. Fine. 2 dots. So Yotza the Nuchal al Kain Hazav Shebehechal. So he goes out, so he takes the blood from the bull, right? He brings it back out, right? And then he puts it upon this, it was a golden table, right? So the Mishnah says, right? Rehuda argues over there. Here's no gimel. So the pasuk over there, the Mishnah says, Yotzav Nicha al Kain Hazav. So he goes over there, excuse me, and he places it right on this golden stand over there to place the blood, and says over there in the Mishnah, Yotzav Nicha al Kain Hazav Hasheni Shebehechal, and Rabbi Huda Omer Lo Hayashem Ella Sham Ella Kenach. Right, there's only one bilva. Right, there's only one there. Right, no, there was one already with the existing blood, and basically he picked that one up, and then he put the other blood that he just used on there to go back inside the Kodesh Kodashim to apply the blood of the seer. So there's a machlekes as to how many bloods were there. So I just turned to my pages, right? So back in the Gemara, so it says Tanan Hasam, Rabbi Huda Imer. Now, going back to what we learned a couple of seconds ago in the by Shkalim, right? Shkalim, right? One of the more difficult parts of Shkalim was describing the description of the different shofros, the amount of boxes that they had for which they would receive the different Shkalim, the different coins for different purposes. So Tan Hasan Rabbi Huda Imer lo ya shofros lekini chayva mipnei hataros. So before we get into the sugya, so the Gemara introduces from the Mishnah over there. It says there was no boxes for the kine chayva. All right, someone has to bring a pair of birds, whatever it was. He was a zav or some other reason for a person to bring a set of birds, which usually includes one chatas and one ola. So there wasn't a box for this purpose because of ataravs. So my mipnei ataravs. What does it mean mipnei ataravs? So Rav Yossi mipnei ataravs chayva ben adava, because we didn't want to go ahead and mix monies for a chover and a dava. Right, the monies were mixed up. Right, then they didn't want to have, as Rashi says, right? Look about it, Rashi, Shema Yischalif Shefer b'Shefer. Perhaps they would confuse the different boxes. The Yakriv and Mois Shefer HaChayva Nedava or Mishal Nedava Chayva, and they would offer someone who needed an obligatory karbanos, which was the money was set aside, one for an ola and one for chatas, was something which was two olos, because nadavas were only olos. There was no chatas which belonged to it. There was no chatas that belonged to a nadava. Right, but tipasa no become puzzles, as the Rashi says. Right, and therefore the application of the bloods of the bird offerings were not identical that an ola and a chova for an ola and a chatas. And therefore we did not want to go ahead and confuse the two. So Amar le Abaye, so Abaye said, and I say, but navid trey. Okay, so right, you don't want to go ahead and mix it. So I have an idea. Why don't you go ahead and make another box, right? Very simple. This is the chova box. This is the nadava box, and very easy. We're at the bottom line and nun hey and aleph, right? So very easy. This is where you want to mix it up. So Rabbi Yehuda. So why does Rabbi Yehuda say don't have a box for chovas at all? Why didn't you say have a box for chovas? Say have 14 boxes and identify it right on it. Chayva nadava. Very simple. Rabbi Yehuda. Less like ksiva, right? Rabbi Yehuda say he must not hold of ksiva. In other words, he must not hold that ksiva, that if something was labeled, was identified, it would not prevent a mistake, right? Just labeling it does not prevent, right? People wouldn't, they'd be careless, right? People are still idiots. The Tanan, we learn in the Mishnah. Now, where do we see this? And we're going to bring this back to our case. Rabbi Yehuda Amir lo yasham ela keinecha bilvad. There was only one golden stand, right, over there in the mikdash for the one place for the blood to put down the kli with the blood, right? Trey my time low. So why not? Why don't you have two? Have two stands there. Do one for the par and one for the seir, right? Trey my time low. Right? Because you might go ahead and confuse the two. Now, he might have put it down and there's two there. He turns around, he turns back, and there's two identical kalim there with blood. He doesn't know which one's which, and he takes the same the par blood again, and he was supposed to take the seir blood, right? So he'll do that. So Gemara says, hide the par, hide the seir. Very easy. Why don't you go ahead, have two stands there, label one bull, right, par, and label the other one seir, right? Ella must be Rabbi Yehuda less like Siva. Rabbi Yehuda must hold that Siva will not prevent a mistake. There were 13 different boxes, kupos, in the base of Mikdash to collect money. And written on them was Kalin Chadasin, right? New shkalim, right? The Gemara is going to explain, right? Particularly Asikin and older shkalim, kinin, right? Bird pairs, right? The geizle ola and young ola birds, the eitzim, and there's boxes for wood, lavona, and there's frankincense, the zav, the kaparas, and gold for the kaparas or for other different kalim, the shishal and nadava, and 6 boxes, right? They needed more space. 6 boxes were for nadavas, were for separate, donation offerings. And what are these different boxes? So when it says new shkalim, that was the shkalim for that year that they collected. So they had for those, right? Tiklin atikin, the old shkalim was for who? Right? Whoever didn't bring last year has to go ahead and bring this year, but they didn't bring this year and put in the new shkalim. They put in the old shkalim, which were used, which was a separate box to them. And kinim and tarin in the box of kinim of pears, right? That was for tarin, that was for doves and guys. The ola and the guys the ola, those were for pigeons. The kulan olos and all these were olos. Divri Rabbi Yehuda. That was the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, right? So what do you see over there? That there was even Rabbi Yehuda, right, says there were boxes that did identify, right? There were boxes that identified the different kupos, right? The different shofros, right? So obviously, ksiva is valuable, right? We do say that, okay, there was. So Kiyasir Avdimi Omar, no, what's the reason why they didn't have a separate box, as Rabbi Yehuda stated, right? In the previous case, right? So it was because that Rabbi Yehuda says, why did he say there's no shofars for a kinei chova, right? So he said, because why is that? So in order that, because we know there's a case, if a owner dies, he brought a chatas, right? He designated the chatas and he dies, so that chatas cannot be offered. So if the money is all mixed up together, then all of a sudden you got a big problem. So he says, therefore, you can't go ahead and just collect a big box of chatos because perhaps one will die, and therefore we don't know which money it is, and therefore you can't bring it. The Gemara says, and are we concerned that someone gives the money and he'll die that day and they can't be offered? But not, because typically they would bring it the same day. But one who goes ahead and sends his you can offer it, even though we don't know. Hey, are you alive? There was no cell phones. You're alive? Yeah, I'm alive, right? So go ahead and I can offer your chatas. We don't know. There's a chazaka that he's alive. So rather, what's the case why we don't have a separate box of chavos? El mishum chatos shemesu bala vada. In other words, if we know that the guy died, right? If the guy he brought his money to the mikdash, he just put his money in. Half hour later, he has a heart attack, died. The money's in the kupa. Now what do we do? That's the problem. Not worried that perhaps someone will die. The chances are very small, right? But if we know that the guy dies, now we got a problem. So okay, I have an idea. How much money did he go ahead and give? It was 4 zuz, right? Take out 4 zuz. That money thrown in the sea. That money can't be used, and then the rest of the money can be used for chatos for the other people who brought. So it must be Rabbi Yehuda less lay breira. It must be that Rabbi Yehuda does not go to breira, which we're going to discuss breira for the next blot or so. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda is all breira. So what is breira? Breira means that it has very good. It has to do with basically something which is something which will be determined later. Can we say that retroactively was what he initially did it for, right? In other words, so if we say that this money, right, in the kupa belonged to the guy who died, and we throw it away, so we'll say that this money retroactively was his money, therefore toss it away. So if you hold to that concept, you can say very easy, pull out 4 zuz. That 4 zuz was that guy's money, and therefore we can take it out and we go offer everybody. But since you can't go back and say that this money was his, part of the kupa, therefore it doesn't allow us. So now, how do we know that he doesn't know a hold of breira? So if that which we learned in the Mishnah, one who goes ahead and purchases wine, we make from the kusim, right? Referring to those who hold that they have a shtickle status of a Jew, and since they're a Jew, one would be required, if one purchases it, for them to take Trumas and Maasros, right? So he does an Erev Shabbos. He doesn't really have time to go ahead and separate everything. So as it's getting dark, you could say Shnei Lugin Shani. So let's say he has 100 lug there. He bought wine, 100 lug. So he says, okay, Shnei Lugin Shani Yosimach Lahafrish Harein Truma. 2 lugin of this 100, 2 out of 100, 1/50th is going to be Truma, right? That's the appropriate amount, right? 1 of 50. So 2 lugin are going to be truma. Turn the page, right? Asara ma'aser rishon. 10 are going to be ma'aser rishon, 10 lugin, and then all of a sudden you're left with 88 or 90, right? And tisha ma'aser sheni, and then you can have another 9 lugin that will be ma'aser sheni, right? And since you already have ma'aser sheni, you have a little trick when it comes to ma'aser sheni. Umichol and then he goes ahead and be chal that money that upon money. In other words, there's a halacha that you don't actually have to have take all of the Meiser Sheni to Shalayim. You could rather basically put the consecrated upon money, and that money has the kedusha of Meiser Sheni, right? So this is all because this guy doesn't have other containers. He can't just take other containers and pour something in this from the barrel into these containers and put it separately aside. Okay, this is the truma, this is the Meiser Sheni. He can't do that, right? So because he can't do that, he's just saying, okay, in the future, I'm going to go get 2 lugin, right? When I come back or after Shabbos, I'll separate it. 2 lugin will go to Truma, 10 will go to Meiser Rishon, right? This 9 over here will be consecrated upon the money. That'll be for Meiser Sheni. Says Rameir, you can do that, right? Even though I didn't do it yet. In the future, and therefore, in the future, on Sunday morning when it comes, and I still have my barrel and I still have 50, 60 lugin left, then I separate all the stuff so everything works out perfectly. Just like I said, hey, I was going to go ahead and separate my truma and my meiser. So here's my truma meiser. I did as said, and therefore when I drank from it on Shabbos, everything was okay. It was misaki and lemafreya. Everything was good because I said I was going to do that. Diva Rabbi Meir, Zipin Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Huda, turn the page. Rabbi Huda, the Rabbi Yasi, the Rabbi Shimon, Isra. Rabbi Huda, Rabbi Yasi, and Rabbi Shimon say that is usher. Also to do, you can't do it. Alma, what is even there? Why? Ein Breira, right? Because what's the reason why? Because you say Ein Breira. Because if you say that it works retroactively, it's okay. But if they say it doesn't work, I can't go ahead because Lamaisa, when I drank on Shabbos, right, I didn't separate my truma and my maestros yet, so therefore it was still considered to be tevel. It was still be considered something that I did not go ahead and fix. So since I didn't fix it, according to Rabbi Yehuda, which is the one we're discussing, and Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Shimon, they must, right, they hold it's aser, alma, ein breira. We see what's the reason? It must be Rabbi Yehuda does not hold a breira. You can't go back and act retroactively and say, oh, that was when I separated. It really counts from right before Shabbos, and therefore I ate it okay. So Gemara says, no, mimai. Who says that's the case? Dilma Shani Hasan. Maybe it's different. Maybe the reason over there is not breira. Because the Tani Tam actually that says over there, Amar Meir, because they replied to our mayor over there. It says, Yata Moida Shemi Bake Hanod V'Nim Sheiset Tvel Lavafreya. Aren't you concerned that perhaps something's going to happen to the barrel? So the guy drinks from Friday night, he has a little wine, and he knows he's going to save over plenty of it, so he'll be able to go ahead and Motzi Shabbos separate it. But what happens if the barrel breaks? The barrel breaks. He was never able to go ahead and give Truma or Meiser, and it turns out that he drank Tevel. He drank something that he never took Truma Meiser, right? Because it broke and it didn't happen. So they said to Rameir, aren't you worried about that? That's the reason why it's usher, right? Nothing to do with Breira. Yes, if it happened to be that it didn't break and he took it, it would have worked. Breira perhaps could have worked. It was just because we're concerned that the barrel might break. And Rameir says, no, if it breaks, then I'll be concerned about it. But breaking is not something that is common. Rameir says it would have been okay. However, perhaps Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon, they actually agree to the concept, perhaps, of Breira, but they were worried that you might not have the opportunity, it might break, and therefore it turns out that you drank from Tevel. Ella midiktani ayo. All right. Rather that which Ayo taught, the Tani Ayo, that was the name of the Chacham, the Tani Ayo. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer ein adam masnal shnei dvarim kachad elim ba. Right. So over here, this is a case by Erevin. By Erevin, a person is allowed to go ahead and set up his tchum, his eruv. And he, even outside the city, he can set up his bread. This area, east of the city, or this area west of the city, right? He can do that before Shabbos. So let's say there's a Talmid Chacham, a Rav coming to town, and he wants to go ahead and hear the shir, but he doesn't know from which direction he's coming from, either east or west, right? So says Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ein adam masnal shei dvarim kechad. He can go ahead and basically set up two, right? One going east, one going west. Ella im bachacham lemizrach, eruva lemizrach, right? And if the chacham comes in the east, my eruv is in the east. Lamarav is I'll put in the west. Eruv is lamarav, right? Avalakan lakan lo. But you can't do both. In other words, you can do one. You can do one and say, okay, east or west. You can only set up one, right? But he can't set up two and say, okay, I'm going to set up two east or west, and whichever way he comes, then I'll go that way. So the Gemara says, "My avalakan kan lo." They said, "Okay, but my shnol kan lo." What's the reason why you say kan lakan? They ain't breira lemizach. They ain't breira because they ain't breira. In other words, if I set up two, right, and then I say I'll decide tomorrow morning which one I want to go to, and then so therefore, right, I'm using the concept of breira. So I'll say, okay, I want to hear the shir. I want to see the two topics. Which one's more interesting to me, right? I'll go to the one in the east, right? So that was going to be, you can't set up two Erev Tchumen. You can't have both east and west. You can only set up one, right? One Erev. So I said, okay, I'll go to the east one. So you decide Shabbos morning. So retroactively, right? Then I'm going to say that which I did on Erev Shabbos by Ben Shmashos, so it was the east one, not the west one. You can't do that, right? So Debre. So the Mizrach Nami Debre. I understand, but if I set up, right, and I don't east or west, right? Why should that be any different? From Rabbi Yochanan, the Shafar ba Chacham, right? No, when the Chacham already came. In other words, he sets up one, right? He does one erev, right? But he doesn't, and the Chacham is already there. The Chacham is already in town, but he doesn't know if the Chacham is in the east or the west. So on that, right? So on that, he was able to go ahead and allow those. Since it wasn't a case of me choosing, right? Wherever the Chacham is, I don't know where he is yet, right? But since he's already here and it's already known, there is a fact whether he's in the east or the west, therefore it works. I just don't know which way it works. It's not like I'm choosing Shabbos morning which one it is. It was already chosen wherever the chacham is. But since I'm not re-choosing it right now, it was already chosen for me. I just happen not to know. So therefore, that would be an effective way of working, right? So now, now, going back to our case, right? Our case, we're talking about, right? Look, that
for both cases, we said that might not be the one.
Right. So Rabbi Yehuda ain't brera. And now, right? In other words, if you look at Rashi, V'hashti Amarta, right? I'm just reading from Rashi. Talmud Rabbi Yehuda b'kinei chayva mishum brera leslei v'aksiva islei. Right. In the case of by the birds, right? He said, right. So that the Rabbi uses bikini chayva mishum the brera leslei, right? You know, he doesn't know the brera, but rather it was the ksiva, right? The writing does. V'hashti Amarta Rabbi Yehuda ain't brera haksiva islei, but he does hold of writing. That writing could be an effective way, right? So Yom Kippurim, Nami Navi Trey, right? Why don't you go ahead and write, right, identify both stands, right? V'nichtav alayu b'shum, right? V'nichtav alayu, and then right upon there. In other words, if it works in the case of over there that we identify the shofros, in other words, which ones belong to what, he just held. He can't do chatas for a separate reason. That was in case the guy dies. But in terms of identifying the boxes, that wasn't a big deal. So if it's not a big deal to identify the boxes, why can't we go have two stands in Yom Kippurim and have, right, one's for the par, one for the seer, and go back to that. Let them have two stands. So the Gemara answers, Mishum chulsha the Kohen Gadol lava daite, right? This is no, because of the weakness of the Kohen Gadol, right? Because he's fasting all day, he's fasting all night, and he's into the day, and he can't really do, he doesn't have all his koichos, so therefore he might not pay attention, he might miss, the sign. If you don't say this, right? Even without the writing, right? You can say you have to high nafish v'high zutar, right? The blood from the bull, which is a much larger animal, is much more than the seir, right? Than that of the goat, right? You can basically identify, right, which blood is which by the size or by the weight. So v'chi tema le'mikabelei kule, and if you say, oh, very simple, because each one kli you only take whatever it is, 2 quarts of blood or whatever it is, you take the same amount, and it's the same. I have Rav Yehuda. As called damal shapar, right? When he does a shechit, he must go ahead and accept all the lifeblood of the par of the bull. Shnei as the pasuk says, "V'as kol dam hapar yishbech sadam mizbech ha'olah." Right. It says over there, "As kol dam hapar," all of the blood. So it's not just I don't just take a revis of blood and says, okay, that's sufficient to go ahead and apply it to the mizbech. It says you have to accept all of the lifeblood of the animal. Right. There's lifeblood and there's blood that trickles out afterwards, but referring to lifeblood, that all of the blood you go ahead and apply. So the blood of a bull is much more than a blood of the seer. So and if you say, oh, maybe some of it spilled out, now it's the same amount, and therefore he'll confuse the two, and therefore it needs to be labeled. So high chibar, high sumak, right? One is that of the seir is much lighter than the blood of the par. So it's very easy to identify even without writing. Just have two stands because even by the color of the blood is different. The bull blood is much darker and much richer. So because we say over there that because of he's weak, he's feeble, he's fasting, right? It's already into the day, he might not be able to go ahead and pay close attention. So over here in case of writing, so therefore, since it's a Kohen Gadol, he won't be able to go ahead and identify which one is which. So therefore, right, it turns out this way will be less confusing because if there's already one kli there with the blood and he walks back with the other one, he knows, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take it and put the other one down. But if he puts one down and then all of a sudden there's two in front of him, he doesn't know which one to go ahead and perhaps will confuse it. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, in order to avoid the mistake of confusing the two, there's only a place for one stand and not two. And therefore, he won't go ahead. He'll always have one on him and he won't confuse it. Now, who the nachas kamei the Rava? One time, years later, generations later, one was davening right in front of Rava Shul, and Omar Yatzav Inichu Al Kain Shnei Shebehechel, and he said during the avoda, which is described in the Musaf Shmona Esrei. So he says, right? So Omar Yatzav Inichu Al Kain Sheni Shebehechel, right? So he mentioned over there he placed the Kohen Gadol, right? Placed the blood upon the second stand in the Heichal, right? Which is like the Rabbanan, right? The Rabbanan hold there were two stands there, right? And then it says there, Natal damapar ve'niach damasir. And then it says he took the bull blood and then he placed the blood of the seir on it. So Amar Lei, so said Rav Dem, you sound like one of your lines is like the Rabbanan, they held the two stands. The other one sound like Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, first you have to remove the blood of the bull, right? So go ahead and place the seir down, right? Now it should be that you place one down and then you take the other, right? But if there's only room for one, you have to remove it before you put the other one down. So you sound like you're going to Rabbi Yehuda, right? In that case. So Ema heiniach damasir v'natal damapar. All right, so rather say that he placed down the damasir. So now that there were two stands, and then he took the blood of the par of the bull. All right, so in other words, to make it all the same, like the Rabbanan, who held that there were two stands there, and therefore when he returns with the blood, he's able to go ahead and place the blood on the stand, and therefore there was a point in time where both bloods were upon the stands, and then he took the other one. Fine. Then we said two dots. So we said bihiza mimena al pareches can I get aron b'chutz. Now, in addition to going inside, right, going inside and doing it by the kaparas, right, he also does upon the curtain, right, upon the pareches, right, where the by the aron b'chutz, right, towards the aron, like in the middle, right. If it's 20 amos, I think it's 20 amos long, right. You do it in the middle where the aron was standing. So too you shall do to the Ol Moed, right, from the Heichal towards the Kodesh Kodashim. So the same way that he's sprinkled on the inside, so too he's sprinkled on the outside of the Heichal, right? Just like in the inside, he did one on top and seven at the bottom for the park. So too he took the bull's blood. And then he sprinkled one above towards the paroches, with in the middle of the paroches where the aron was behind it, right? And so he did one on top and seven at the bottom. So too, that was the same way he did in the heichal upon the curtain. And just like when he went and took the seir blood and did one on top and seven on bottom, so too that he also sprinkled one on top and seven on the bottom towards the heichal. So now basically that is 4 sets of sprinkling, right? He went on the inside with the par towards the kaparas, one on top, 7 on the bottom with the par blood. Then the seir blood, 1 on top, 7 on the bottom on the kaparas with the seir blood, right? And then he comes back on the outside. He takes again the bull's blood. Now does it from the heichal, does it on the curtain, right? Does it on the paroches in the middle, which towards the aron, which is behind it, which you couldn't see, right? So there's 1 on top there and 7 on bottom, and then he takes the seir blood and does it 1 on top and 7 on bottom. And then the pasuk says, "Hashechein itam b'seich tumasan." Right. The next pasuk says, pasuk hazayin. It says, "V'chiper al kadosh mitumas b'nei som shehem l'chol chatasam v'chein yaseh lo moed." So too you shall do to the ol moed, which we just used that pasuk to teach you that the sprinkling is upon the curtain. Right. Hashechein. Then the next word, the last 4 words of the pasuk is Hashechein itam b'seich tumasan. Right. Dwells with them amongst their tumah. So what does it mean? So afilu b'shas shehein tamein shchinim on. Even the times when the Jews are tameim, that the Shechina, the Shechina is with them. And Amar Le, how Tzeduki, Rabbi Chanina, one time at Tzeduki said to Rabbi Chanina, right? So Hashta. So those of you who weren't here in the beginning, so I have to be somewhere tomorrow, but I just want to get a little bit ahead. So tomorrow there is not going to be shear, right? But we're just going to get a little bit ahead, and then we'll just catch up on Tuesday. We'll pick up and we'll catch up before the week is over, Mitzvah Shem. So we're just going to go towards we'll see how far we can get in Zayin, just because Nun Vav and Aleph was very short. So, but we'll still finish in time for those of you to get your tefillin on and say Karbanos before midnight. So anyway, we have another 7-8 minutes. So Hashda. So he says. So says a certain Tzeduki. Chanina Hashda. Right? You guys are for sure Tomei. You have no base of mikdash anymore. The pasuk says to masa b'shulel. Right? We're referring to by when we say. So the pasuk again, Eicha, right, referring to that basically we're like an impure woman, we're impure, the Shekhinah are with us. So Amalei, so answer, he says, no, look at the pasuk, it says, Hashechen itam b'seich tumasa. Even if we're tamei like Anida, it says over there, Afilu b'zman shein tmein, even when Bnei Yisrael is tmein, Shekhinah shruya b'neim. The Shekhinah is amongst them. Now, we just learned earlier, right? We started the share off today learning about 1 and 7 between the par and the seer, learning one from the other. And now we're learning that the sprinkling on the curtain, on the paroches, is identical to that of the kaparas. Can something which is learned out through a hekesh between the dam and the par and the seer now be learned to a complete new hekesh, the same limud, over to something else? You can't do that. So one says no. Since over here it's not, we're not learning the exact same. Over there was just learning about the amount of numbers, and over here was learning that we know that there was stuff that was included. It wasn't all complete hackish, right? Because the psukim did identify the sprinkling over there of the 7 in the case of the bull, the 1 in the case of the seir, that there were 2 of them were linked. Therefore, it wasn't exactly a full complete hackish, and that was considered to be a hackish and a davar acher. Right, and therefore, because he had some pasuk supporting it, it wasn't considered a hekesh, and therefore you're able to go ahead and relearn it to something else. So this works well according to another opinion who holds, since it's not complete hekesh, you go ahead and teach something else. According to the opinion who holds that this is considered to be a hekesh, and therefore you shouldn't be able to learn something else. What are you going to say? So Gemara says no. We're not learning the separate halachas of the 7 and the 1, and now you do 7 and 1 on the outside. We're just learning the kaimas, right? It's a different hekesh, right? The hekesh over here, we're just learning just like you do on the inside, so too you do on the outside heichel. It's not an exact hekesh, which is relearned. We're not saying A equals B, and now B can be C, right? Which meant C is identical to A. That wasn't limud. It was 2 different types of hekesh. One was the amount and the type of sprinkling, and the other one was just location, mekimos, that just like you do it on the kaparas, so too you do in the parochas. So it says, no, maybe it's really all one limud. Since it's all one limud, in other words, since it's all considered to be one type of limud, that since we say that the hekesh are learned from 1 to 7 and 7 to 1, right? It was all learned at one time, and therefore it's not considered to be one. Firstly, learning out the power to the seir and the seir to the power, and then from there learning out the kaparas. Rather, it's learned out all together, right? As Rashi explains there, right? So too over here, right? Therefore, it's not considered to be one hekesh and then learn to another. It's really all considered to be done at the same time. And just a few more lines. So Tana. Right? When he goes ahead and sprinkles, he doesn't sprinkle literally on the curtain, rather towards the curtain. So Amar Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yasi says, Rabbi Yasi, Ani Ra'isiya b'Roimi. When I was in Rome and I saw the curtain, I saw there was blood on the curtain. There was some droplets of dry blood on the curtain. So it seems to be that the blood was on the curtain, not just towards. So Gemara says no. The dilma the par. First of all, the dilma the par davar. People have a seer of those. So perhaps
they were changing it every year. I thought, right? It used to say that they were changing the parochet every year. So perhaps there was hazah on the parochet.
There was one that they had there in Rome, and this is what he saw. He said that there were
right. So there was hazah. Okay.
Right. But the Gemara is asking. So maybe there's 2 other avodas where we sprinkle on the curtain, right? There's the avodah, the paralim davar, right? Paralim davar is when Rov ben Esau sins upon a severe avera, one with kares, that was a psak of the Sanhedrin, or there was a korban tzibur, that was one that was brought because of avodah zarah. Those are also blood applied on the mizbeach hazav and also applied to the curtain. So maybe it was that curtain, not the curtain of Yom Kippurim. So the Gemara answers no. The Chazad Davidi Kasidron. I saw that it went down in a straight line. It goes down in a straight line, which is only that of Yom Kippur. As he says, Kamatzlip, right? To go straight down. It went in succession, one lower than the other. So since it was all in a row, I know it was that of Yom Kippurim. And we almost identical prices by Paralim Davar Shal Tzibur. It says really they didn't sprinkle it on the curtain, it was just towards the curtain. If it touched it, but they wouldn't do it directly towards the curtain. And Omar Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yasi says, Rabbi Yasi, I was in Rome, and I saw there were blood droplets on the curtain. So obviously it went upon it and not off it. So the Gemara says, I have a deal with the paraseva. Who says that was the blood for the Helm Davar or for the seir of Avodah Zarah? Maybe it was from the blood of the seir of Yom Kippurim. So the Gemara answer is no. The Chazina and the Avin Shel Kasidra, right? then I know because I saw that that since it wasn't done in order, wasn't done in a straight line, therefore I know that was not for Yom Kippur because that was said kamatzif. Rather, it was done. It was like out of order. It was just like a big mess, and therefore it was referring to the other karbanos. Maybe we'll stop over here. We'll pick up tomorrow. There is no shir. B'ez Hashem, we'll continue from here on Tuesday, and by at least for sure by Wednesday we'll be completely caught up. So everyone have a wonderful day, and we will continue.